Hi guys, how's everybody going? We've got a bit of a different show tonight. We've got Jeremy, obviously. How are you, mate?
Yeah, not bad, not bad. Sitting over the other side of the city.
That's right, and we have somebody else sat right beside me. That's Mr. J. How are you?
Yeah, good, bro. Yourself? Everything's going good?
That's good. Jay's a new member of the team, and it's his first ever podcast, so he's learning as he goes, and forgive him for anything that may happen tonight. So how's things going with you anyway? How's the little one?
Little one is spawn of Satan, if I can say that.
We'll have to do a show on that.
Wait until they're big ones, then they just get bigger spawns of Satan.
That's true, but she's doing good. She's crawling around, so it's driving me nuts, and I'm just going grey. That's why I cut my hair so short.
It's all the daddy haircut, mate. You don't have to cut it. It just sort of happens.
No, yours is the George Costanza.
So you can tell who's the new dad here. You can tell who's got some older kids, and you can tell who's got the oldest kids by the amount of hair that we have on our head. You're looking at your future, dude.
No, it's just called genetics.
Yeah, that as well. No, so tonight I've been going back through all of our videos from a long time back, and I found a video of particular interest that I recorded back in 2009, I believe it was, and it was with a guy called Stephen Bassett, who he was out from the States to do some talking about UFO disclosure and stuff like that. Now, it was an interview. It went for about half an hour, and he's a really nice bloke. We actually spent a lot more time there with him than when we were just recording. We had some good conversations, but it was actually my first ever interview. So we're going to play the video in a few minutes. So please forgive the very, 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 very nervous Gary and the very bad video quality and the very bad video editing. But what he has to say is extremely interesting. I don't know how much you guys know about it, but it's not about UFOs per se. It's more about getting the government to actually disclose what they know and let the public judge for themselves.
Yeah, I'm very limited in my knowledge in that area. I'm more of the paranormal ghost side of things, but I've always been very curious and very keen to learn more about it. It's something that sticks in my neck, that how the government doesn't be more transparent with the general public. They seem to think we're animals and idiots and don't have the mental capacity to comprehend or, you know, take it normally like a normal person. They think we're just going to run and scream and turn into mass chaos.
One of the questions I actually put to him was, what does he think the UFO disclosure event would look like? You know, is it going to be the president on the lawn of the White House saying aliens are real? Or is it going to be something a lot more subtle than that? And it's, like I said, it's quite interesting what he has to say, because like I said, it would change the world no end over. You know, it would be absolutely ridiculous how much the world would change. And his answer to that was some things would completely change and other things would only change a little bit. So he's got some very interesting answers, and he sort of touches on a few things that conspiracy theorists might call the New World Order and things like that. And it's interesting stuff. So you got anything you want to say before we jump into it, Jeremy?
Not really. The government's going to let out what they want to let out at a controlled rate to keep people happy, per se.
Yeah, that's sort of what he was going into. And I think it's a case of they're keeping everybody dumb so that they can just do what they want to do and do it at their own rate.
Well,
and
you divide people and keep them dumb enough, and you can conquer anything you want.
That's it. So anyway, if you're happy, I will play the video. It goes for about half an hour, and then we'll jump back in and have a look and see what you think of it. Okay? So again, apologies, and you're going to see a very young, very different Gary, very nervous Gary, who's got absolutely zero internet interview skills or any of that kind of shit. So anyway, here's the video, guys.
That's the naughty word.
Okay, today we're here with Steve Bassett. If you would like to explain to everybody what you do and about what you do.
I'm the executive director of the Paradigm Research Group, which was established in 1996 in just outside of Washington, D.C. for one purpose and one purpose only, to politically engage and hopefully eventually resolve the UFO ET issue. Not once and for all, but at least the current status quo.
Get it out there.
And by resolve the issue is meant to change a government policy that the United States formulated and instigated back in the late 1940s, early 1950s, with the assistance of their allies after the war. Right, we were very popular back then, the U.S. To essentially sequester or embargo the acknowledgement of an extraterrestrial presence, which they knew was engaging. And this embargo was maintained throughout the Cold War for some fairly good reasons. I mean, it's hard to argue with their logic, given how frightening the Cold War was and what was at stake. But after the Cold War ended, it was time to move on, but it hasn't happened yet. And so a movement has been developing to finally end that truth embargo and reveal to the world, reveal to the citizens of nations that, in fact, they're not alone in the universe.
How do you feel everything would go if it was to come out tonight? I know it's a big ask, but how do you think the world would react?
We had a war called Civil War in the U.S. Back in the 1800s. Lasted about 5 years. Right? It was a big deal, no question about it. And I think something like 60,000 books now have been written about the American Civil War. It's likely several 100,000 books will be written about the disclosure event and what comes after it. Certainly the year or two following it. Because the disclosure event will be, by quite a good margin, the most profound event in human history. It's not a good fortune for us that we're able to be here, and watch it. And not with any cheap tech. We've got high definition television and high quality computers and cable TV, and where you get to totally participate in the whole darn thing. It's kind of cool. Trying to describe what is going to happen in disclosure is a formidable job. And all I can do is reduce it to some fundamental ideas, fundamental concepts. First and foremost, basically everything changes. Everything in the world changes in a way. Not necessarily in a huge way. Some things will completely change. But most things will change a little bit. So it will be a new world. Right? Not a new world order, per se, but a new world. It will be a new paradigm, which is why I call the organization Paradigm Research Group. Right? And one of the things will change will be the worldview of human beings. And this is one of the most interesting and important ideas, which it's not readily accessible via a couple 2-minute interviews on television. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But the simple truth is that everybody wakes up in the morning with a worldview. And that is, you may get out of bed in the morning, and you may be a member of the Labor Party, you may be a baseball player, you might be an Anglican, you could be a Western Australian and an Australian, okay? And you could apply any number of other ians and ists to you, right? You're all those things, right? You're also a human being. You're a member of the human body. Okay. Interestingly enough, that is pretty much the last thing that people think of. By the time they work through all those ians and ists, it's like they're pretty much pooped out. And it's like well, we have a human being, but so what? What is that?
I guess in the case of disclosure, that would become number one straight away.
Well, suddenly you learn that you're not even the only species in the galaxy. There may be some genetic connections between us and some ETs, no problem. Just like there's genetic connections between Americans and Irish and British and French and Africans. Okay, nothing shocking about that. But we also know there's people on this planet have no genetic connection at all to anybody else on this planet. Well, that's probably the case So, suddenly we learn that we're not the only species in the galaxy, which makes us, okay, that's pretty cool. All right, so they got their species, we got our species. What about our species? Okay, how's it doing? Right? And I think people will shift a little toward that question. How's it doing? It's not doing very well. All right? Because within that species are thousands of years of blood feuds, revenge, threads, nationalist conflicts, racial conflicts, religious conflicts, yada, yada, yada.
I suppose realistically, we're very primitive when you look at it from that angle, aren't we?
Well, we're primitive in one way, but in terms of our weaponry, we're quite sophisticated. You know, we got lasers, we got nuclear bombs, we got bio plagues, we got all kinds of stuff. Pretty cool. Unfortunately, all that leads to death and destruction. And so, this idea that, you know, I realize that you're a communist and an atheist, and I am, you know, a Baptist capitalist. But, you know, we are both human beings, so why don't we just stow the nukes, right, and go have a lunch and talk about whatever, right? This sounds silly. It's not. A modest shift in specialization of the human race could drop us below the threshold of essentially being fundamentally warlike, and war could disappear in a relatively short amount of time, just like it disappeared in Europe. And, well, with the short-term exception of the Balkan conflicts, which are basically over now, and the Serbs are winning all the tennis matches at Wimbledon. All right, so just you know, it's like a threshold thing. You know, thresholds are very important in life, and people don't always understand them. But here's a good way to understand threshold. You're standing in a swimming pool, and the water comes right up to your nose. Oh, by the way, you're wearing cement boots, and the water comes up right to here. You're good. Somebody puts a hose in the pool and raises the water to here. You're not good. You crossed a critical threshold. So, if we can drop below a certain threshold with respect to how we view each other, we might eliminate war in decades or less. Now that's two big matzo balls, as they say, that change the world very quickly. One of the roles of the disclosure movement is to raise these questions now so that people will immediately start thinking about it as soon as disclosure takes place. Because what's going to happen after the announcement is that people are going to be in a state of shock a little bit. They're going to be in a state of change. They want change. They're going to want to think about doing things differently. But the old paradigm thinking in ways will immediately start exerting its force along the lines of, okay, it's a new game, it's a new world, but with a little adjustment, we can still make everything seem like the last paradigm.
So you see a full shift.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
Okay. And that would be one of the great opportunities ever lost. So that is just a snippet of the kind of changes and the kinds of thinking that apply to the post-paradigm world. We could go on for days on this. I mean, you could take any aspect of politics, religion, psychology, economics, pick anything. I don't care what it is. The stock index in Hong Kong, whatever. And you could, if you spend a little time, come up with a way that disclosure of the ET presence is going to affect that item. That's how big this is.
With regards to the actual announcement, how do you feel they would approach the subject? Would it be just straight out there, or would they start doing it in stages?
Well, they've already started doing it in stages.
So that's the way.
The acclimatization process has really been underway in one form or another for 62 years. Meaning that one component of the truth embargo, and this may sound a little odd, but even though they were committed to ensuring that the formal acknowledgement and consensus acceptance of the UFO reality was not going to happen, they also felt that they needed to still have some acclimatization process. So if something dramatic happened, the human race wouldn't get cold cocked. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because you see, the governments of the world, particularly the U.S., had a significant problem in that while they could manage a truth embargo and they can manipulate the press and undermine a research organization and whatever, these guys up there can do anything they want. And so you may think you got everything under control, and they park a mothership over Washington, D.C. What do you got then? And so it would be best if at least there was some acclimatization process. Otherwise, people were going to get rather out of shape should something dramatic happen. And so they were doing that too. And so you saw over the 60 years from 47 forward, you saw the emergence of alien science fiction, books, movies, television. You saw overall plenty of research taking place, plenty of groups. They didn't have any money, but they were doing it.
So do you feel like movies the likes of District 9, that sort of thing, are another way they're trying to twist the angle people look at it and make them a little bit more receptive?
Probably not. If you pick at a particular movie, probably not.
That
Okay.
sort of general.
But there's two kinds of acclimatization going on. One is a structured process with some government influence, and the other is the natural processes that any sentient species would go through once you throw that fish in a barrel. All right? And so, I mean, the government doesn't have to go out and tell a lot of movie guys, you know, you gotta make a movie about aliens. They knew that a long time ago. They make big bucks. All right? As you, I'm sure you know, the highest grossing movie of all time, by a vast margin, is not surprisingly about extraterrestrials. Avatar. And it didn't exactly have the greatest screenplay of all time, but it was about extraterrestrials. So it was a lot going in. And there's going to be a sequel. And it's going to do, well, Avatar's going to do $3 billion, and the sequel might do $2 billion.
Yeah.
So what does that say? I mean, the previous highest grossing movie, also by the same guy, Cameron, I'll tell you, I don't know what he's got, but he's got it, right?
Yeah.
Was about a sinking ship. I love that dichotomy, you see, because really, if you look at the human race from about 1945 on, and even go 1900 on, it's basically a sinking ship, which is why I think everybody went to see Titanic, because deep down inside they're going, I can relate to that. Now we've got a movie about extraterrestrials that makes 50% more money than that one, all right? And this movie is about extraterrestrials living in nature, living in a balanced kind of reality and happy, who are having to deal with old paradigm humans that are trying to bring the old paradigm to their world instead of embracing it. So in other words, if disclosure were to go bad, and maybe 50 or 100 years after disclosure, you've actually still got people flying around in Vietnam like helicopters, blowing up trees. You see, that would be bad. Right? So one of the goals of the disclosure movement is to ensure that whatever happens, 70 years after we're finally acknowledging the ET presence, we're not flying around in helicopters blowing up trees. That's one of the key messages of that movie. So Mr. Cameron did not have to have any emails from the government saying, make a movie about ETs. So it's way too complicated to assess it. However, be assured that the government had some influence in the early days of this process. They had encouraged it. They cooperated with movies from time to time. And the books, the movies, the TV, the documentaries, let me tell you, we're ready for this. We are totally ready. So we've been acclimated, all right? But there's a little more to it than just acclimatization, but still, we're more than ready. All the kids are ready, right? They recently did a poll by Reuters using a global polling operation, very substantial. I think it was called Ipsos or IPSOS, I'm not sure whatever, but it's a big operation. And they actually tried to do something never been done before. They tried to poll the planet. There have been plenty of polls of first world nations, like UK, United States, and asking a basic question, are they UFOs, ETs? And by the 90s, they were starting to get 50% results. Okay, 50% think, yeah, pretty profound number. Okay. But what about the rest of the world? So they went out and they did this poll, and they did like 20-some countries, Africa, Asia, India, and like that. So they felt they had a representative sample of the world. But they asked a tougher question. I wish they had asked two questions. I wish they had asked, do you think some of those UFOs are ETs? And then, do you think ETs are actually living amongst us? But they didn't ask the former, they just asked the latter. Do you think ETs are living amongst us? The percentage of the world's population that thinks that is 20%. 1.3 billion people. And I believe that the percentage for the lesser question, or the lesser question was around 50%. That's 3 billion people.
Maybe even more.
So, are we, and you could be, and I'll tell you, of the other 3 million people, probably half of them are leaning that way. I don't know for sure, but show me a little more evidence and I'm with you. So we are so ready. Who is not ready is the old paradigm members of the military intelligence complexes of the great nations of the world, including our good friend and ally, Australia. They were born, there's some baby boomers still there, without question. There's quite a few. Some Gen Xers, almost no millennials. And they are of that time. And while it is their job to take care of such matters, for them, this is a tough one. Right? So if you're born in 1949, and 60 years later, you're in a meeting, and the question at the table is it time to get to the president and say it's time to announce the ET presence? It's tough. Now, you put a bunch of 19-year-olds at the table and go, oh yeah, let's rock. Get Obama in here, let's do it. All right, let's get it out. Let's get some, I want to go to the stars, where are the starships? I want to talk to the ETs. But that's not who's at the table. So again, this is, I guess, a little sense of the dynamic underway.
Yeah. In the unlikely situation where a non-US government is going to be the first one to disclose...
Not unlikely, it's possible. Very possible.
How do you think the United States government would handle that?
Yeah. It's like saying, we just discovered you had been embezzling from the firm for the last 40 years. And it would have been nice if you told us. How would you handle that? Sheepishness comes to mind. And in Australia, that could be the reason. But the point is that this is a very significant watershed moment for the United States. And everybody thinks that their thing is a watershed moment, by the way. But here's the deal. The United States started this embargo. It got its allies to go along with it. It then maintained it and is clearly the leader in the world with respect to studying ET technology from those crashed vehicles, along with the dead aliens in them. Yeah. All right? And it went to great lengths to maintain this embargo. It should have ended in 1994, and probably would have if H.W. Bush had won the election, but he didn't. Another guy won. And while H.W. Bush was their guy, so much so that they named the headquarters of the CIA after him. Right? Mr. Clinton was not their guy. And so they backed off. And the next thing you know, another 16 years have gone by and they still haven't done it. And so what's happened is the world is losing its patience. And your audience needs to understand that there are elements within every single major world government that know about the ET presence. Count on it. And includes Australia. That doesn't mean that all the MPs are running around knowing about ETs. No, it means that there are elements of the Australian government that are not only aware of the ET presence, they're engaging the ET presence issue in full cooperation with the United States. Right? That's non-trivial. Same for England, same for the UK, for Canada, it's the same for France, very likely Germany. Not the same for Russia and China. Still, they all know it's on bubble.
Yeah.
Okay. So, the U.S. is at a crossroads. If it doesn't lead the disclosure process itself in the event, then it will have to absorb all of the criticism that the world wishes to direct at it for how it handled the truth embargo. And there'll be plenty of disagreements about this, right? And particularly when they start adding up the cost, because the truth embargo has had a cost. It's like when you embargo Iraq or you embargo Cuba. There were reasons to do it, but there were costs. A whole lot of Cubans died because of that embargo. A whole lot of Iraqis died. And of course there are people that they're not happy about that. But it's just some Cubans and Iraqis. Not so with this embargo. Everybody was involved. And there are significant costs that we paid in blood and people's lives and in treasure in order to keep that embargo going. And people are going to add that up and go, wait a minute. So they're going to get all of that, but no upside. The upside will go to the nation that does disclose. They will be the great truth tellers. They will be the leader into the next paradigm, into the 20th century. And you know who could very well be that leader into the 20th century? The great truth teller of our time?
France?
Communist China.
China?
Yes.
I thought France might have
There's a
been
bit
up
of
there as well.
irony. France isn't this. France is unbelievable. Now, there are some Americans that would be even more appalled if France did it. They prefer China over France. But that's short-sightedness on their part. So, Communist China ends up leading the world in the 21st century and being the great truth teller. Well, look, there's an irony here, but the fact is, if they ended, they deserve the prize, don't they? So now, where is the U.S.? Well, here's the U.S. If the Communist China, the Chinese Communist Party, and the People's Republic of China, which fully endorses UFO research, right? No problem with it. The government has government entities doing it, right? You want to be a UFO researcher? Go to China, you'll be fine. You want to practice Falun Gong? Don't go to China. So, if that party announces the ET presence tomorrow, all right, here's where the U.S. is. We're in a major recession. It could go depression. We have $73 trillion in derivative exposure, $53 trillion in unaccounted downstream liabilities, a multi-trillion-dollar debt, a massive deficit. A great deal of our money is in the hands of foreign countries, including the People's Republic of China. Our dollar, while strengthened lately, but it's somewhat relative, it could collapse. Other nations are calling for a non-dollar based reserve currency. Our Gulf of Mexico is filling up with oil. 10% of our homes are upside down with huge numbers in foreclosure. We've lost our manufacturing base. They're starting to take down whole parts of Detroit because nobody's there anymore. California, our major state, is $50 billion in debt. And many cities in the country, and some states are considering filing bankruptcy. And oh, by the way, China just announced as an extraterrestrial presence, I guess you guys are going to have to fess up now. That's not a good thing. And so there's a lot at stake for the United States.
I think we're just about out of time, so I've got one more question that I really want to put to you.
Okay.
If it was all to come to a head tonight,
Yes.
and disclosure was to fully come out,
Right.
what would Steve Bassett do tomorrow?
Oh, Steve, well, first of all, he'll party. He'll party. He'll write 10,000 I told you so cards. I joke. Right. No. I have 1,000 things I could do in the post-disclosure world. The biggest problem is picking what. But in general, the disclosure process, the disclosure event, is only the beginning of really the new world. It's in fact it'll be over in a couple of minutes, and it's kind of it'll be a bit depressing because it will be over in a couple of minutes, and that's that. So you go for years and years and years trying to get something. It's done. Okay. However, the post-disclosure world will go on forever, and the work that needs to be done and the opportunities are just incredible. And so I'll try to be part of it and try to take what cachet I have and acquire some power and some money, right? So that I can be an influence, just like the Bilderbergers and the Rothschilds and Illuminati, right? Only, I'll be working with other people and we'll be doing our thing, and we'll try to be a positive influence. See, there's nothing wrong with coming together. There's nothing wrong with influence. There's nothing wrong with trying to shape the world. The issue is for what purpose and how, right? So this idea, we need to do away with all controlling entities and all entities that try to influence. And then what do you got? Basically, you got chaos is what you got. The problem in the world is not that there are people trying to shape it. The problem is they're making the wrong decisions. In other words, they're like a sculptor that's trying to sculpt, the David, and it looks like crap. I mean, it's like that. It looks like the cross between a hippopotamus and a mud ball. Whatever. The point is, it's not that these things are going on. It is the fact that they are not seeking the right outcomes. Now, right is relative, right? But I think people know generally the difference between the good and the bad and the right and the wrong. Okay, genocide, massive wars, destroying the Pacific Ocean, not good. Okay, sustained growth, bringing the rich and poor together, right? Eliminating war, that is good. Okay, this is not complicated. But believe me, there's plenty of power people that are perfectly fine with destroying the Pacific Ocean if they can buy 2 more mansions on the Riviera. Okay, well, we want to overcome those.
Yeah.
All right? This is not complicated in that sense. How it will come out, I have no idea. I envy all the kids that come to me because I know they're going to see most of this go on. They're going to go to the stars.
Yeah.
I'm not, but with any luck, I'll get a good 10 years in the post-disclosure world, maybe 15. And I'm going to enjoy it every day. So.
Just in closing, do you want to tell everybody about your websites
Oh,
so
yeah.
they can look up?
If any of this made sense to you, you can go to my portal at www.paradigmresearchgroup.org. That's the main portal to the work of Paradigm Research Group. There are thousands of links there that will take you off to all kinds of stuff. But on the main portal page, you can link over to the factsonwashington.org, which is ongoing. You can link over to the X conference, which we've had 6, going to have 7, hopefully, in 2011. You could link over to a conference in development called Contact 2010. And you can link, and this is really important, to the Exopolitics World Network, which was founded by PRG in 2008. And Australia has a site. It has a portal site to the Exopolitics World Network called Exopolitics Australia, run by Grant Robb out of Canberra. We have 22 countries. We're hoping to get up to 30 or 40. We're looking for people that want to run the portal site for their country, if we don't already have one. So that's a taste, and you'll get to see other projects, and you can link to other things that are going on. PRG is part of a growing international movement. There are many, many organizations now. The one thing we all have in common is we don't have enough funding. The truth embargo was designed specifically to prevent funding of this kind of activism. So one of the key things that needs to happen is we need some individuals who are highly successful in their life and quite comfortable financially, but who want to change the world. They want to be part of history, and they have the means to do it. To throw off any concerns they have about, quote, the truth embargo, which is sort of ending anyway, and step up and provide the money that will allow us to take this activism to 2 or 3 levels higher, and more importantly, to get positioned so that when the disclosure does take place, we're going to be able to get out of the starting gate pretty quickly. Because believe me, once disclosure takes place, it's going to look like the Oklahoma land rush. And so we need our support now. And so we invite people to come and look at these sites, and if they want to step in and help, we would love to hear from you.
Steve Bassett, thank you very much. Great.
What do you think of that?
It's very in-depth and it's very enlightening, and it's actually very frightening that the government hides as much as they do.
Yeah, I actually found that video not long ago in my collection, and I watched it back. And you got to remember, I actually think I said 2009. I may have been wrong. It might have been 2010 when I actually sat down with Steve and we did that interview. I apologise for that crow. It was annoying on the day. We had somebody outside shooing it around, and it just kept coming back. But you look at some of the things that he had to say, and you look at what's going on with the world right now, he couldn't have been more bang on with a lot of it. You know,
So he's hit the nail right on the head.
Yeah, several nails on the head.
Multiple things, even without the whole, I'm the first country to release this information on extraterrestrials. America's kind of put their foot in it anyway, and it's gone the way it's gone without even having anyone else to release that information.
Well, yeah, this is one of the things that I said. I've reached out to Steve to see if we can do a follow-up interview, because I'll send him that so he can see what happened then and then see where we are now. Because one of the questions that I put to him is, what do you think this disclosure event would actually look like? And because obviously there were bits that weren't included in the video. And he said there may not be a definitive moment. It's just going to be a series of moments that lead to an inevitable outcome.
Which it is.
Sorry?
Which it is. It's already happening.
Well, that's what he said. He said it already started back then in 2010. And I went through talking about movies, and are they a way of bringing the subject up in a more light-hearted way? But it puts it at everybody's fingertips. It's there, and it puts it in their mind. And then little bits of news that come out, and I said, would that be a way of easing people into it? And you heard some of what he talked about. You know, I mentioned District 9, I think, and he said, not if you're going about a specific movie, but if you're talking about a genre as a whole. I mean, I think it wasn't long after that when the first Independence Day film came out, and I don't think they're necessarily the sort of films that you want, but what's interesting... Yeah, go on.
You can see it as Hollywood's been conditioning people for decades.
Yeah.
The movies and television programs that have come out, and it's sad. It happens. It's conditioning by the media.
It's actually brainwashing the general public of the human race to think the way that the government wants them to think. It's dumbing it down and making us all look like idiots. We need to, as a people, stand up and say, no, we're not taking this anymore. We need to be allowed to see, hear and feel and have our own opinions on what's actually going on.
Yeah, I agree with that. One of the other things that he brought up about was China and Russia. He sort of compared to the rest of the world, which, you know, I think he talked about the Balkans and stuff like that. And obviously we've got stuff going on in the Ukraine at the moment. And just when he started talking about the finances of the world, how people's houses are going into foreclosure, how people are having troubles being able to feed. I mean, you can just go down and have a look at the price of things at the shops now. It's all going through the roof.
And the CPI is going up again next week.
Yeah. And it's, again, he hit that nail on the head. And it just makes you wonder. And another thing that he did touch on was about how every government has departments that are fully invested in this.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe not, not the Prime Minister or the President or things like that, but they will have people who will know what's going on. And it makes you think, is it all a big power play? Not so much about dumbing the world down, but it's about trying to keep the evidence of aliens, extraterrestrials, UFOs, UAPs, 1,000 different terms out there, keeping them secret so that they can get military advantage from it.
Look, I'm not surprised that it's already been done, to be honest. Look at the technology advancements in the last 30 years, and you're telling me nothing else has had a hand to play in that?
Well, I bring this up all the time. You go back 1,000 years, and they were still throwing sticks and arrows, and they had swords and things like that. And that happened until a few hundred years ago when they went to sort of like the muskets and all of those kind of things. And then you got this steady sort of incline of advancement. And then from the 1930s and 40s, it's sort of gone whoop up like that. What's happened in the 1930s and 40s that would warrant massive amounts of accelerated...
But you have a look at the ancient hieroglyphs of like the Aztecs, the Egyptians, indigenous Australians, everything like that. All of their hieroglyphs depict a flying craft and an alien-shaped figure. Mm-hmm. Every single one of those cultures has it.
Yep.
So obviously there's something out there. It's just that the government will not let us find it out because they're scared that the general public may just actually friend these people and throw our government out.
Well, that's it. The way the world is at the moment, with all the movies that have come out, I think if they're trying to dumb people down, it may have worked in a large number, but there's probably an equally large number where it's just stoked their interest and they want the answers now, So at some point, it's got to come to a head. But where we're going with this is, what does a disclosure event look like? I asked him that question, and he said it's hard to answer what it would actually look like now. It wasn't long after that interview. Like I said, I thought it was 2009. It might have been 2010. I'll have to double check all of that. But it wasn't long after that, I don't think, that the Nimitz had that footage, which that was locked away for a long time. That's only just come out in the last few years. Luis Elizondo and the ATIP program released, the famous Tic Tac video, and I think there's a gimbal video or something along those lines, which are films of from the nose gun of a fighter in pursuit of
I was just looking at that.
Yeah,
of
I have seen
UAPs.
that one.
Now, the fact that that has been released to the world, and that is,
Was that,
you know,
that one in
you
2015?
you look at the aerodynamics of that thing they were chasing, right? At the time, the I think it was an FA-18, something like that, that was chasing it. That was the top of the pops in relation to, you know, fighter jets at the time. They couldn't catch it. They couldn't keep up with it.
Or outmaneuver it.
They couldn't outmaneuver it, no. And from what you can see, there were no control. You know, it didn't have ailerons. It didn't have any of that sort of stuff.
No tail rudders, no wing flaps or anything like that.
No. So it brings it down to one of two options. One, were they chasing a craft of unknown origin from outside of our atmosphere? Or were
The government testing something.
the government testing something that was back engineered from something that came from outside of our
Well, yeah.
atmosphere?
Was that the video from 2015 that came out? That's been circling just recently again.
It's the one with the little white blip that sort of chasing around in the
Yeah, it is that one then.
yeah.
And that's another thing where he was saying about the highest grossing movies. I know it sounds really trivial right now. He wasn't far off the net ratings that the second film made either.
Yeah, well,
I think
it's, you know,
currently sitting
people
at
go to
2
the
million.
movies because they want to see that sort of thing because everybody's curious. Everyone wants to know. Is there life out there? I mean, it's a pretty big waste voided space if we're the only living creatures in the whole universe.
There's no chance.
No,
There's no chance.
You know, I mean, crap. We haven't had a wheel that long in realistic terms. You know what I mean? And we are by no means the oldest or most advanced civilization out there. You know,
You're trying to.
you go into Michio Kaku's 5 levels of whatever. You know, we don't even barely rate on number 1 and number 5. You know, to us they'd be godlike. It's that old chestnut.
And I think that's what the government's scared of. If the human race actually sees them as a godlike deity, well, then how are we going to see the government?
You look at
Exactly.
They're
The government's
underlings
got it at the moment.
in the scope of things.
yeah, and you look at the governments now, right? They're all talking about military prowess, you know, defense of their sovereign borders, things like that. Now, that's all good and well when you're fighting other countries on the same rock. You know what I mean? They've got to come from here. They've got to come from there. There are specific borders in place, and that's what they defend. But if you go into the cosmos and then you come in towards Earth, it's just one big ball. You know, how are we to defend ourselves from something that's coming down from above? It's
Well,
not
that's-
like
that's why
like
the US
we're-
tried to develop the Star Wars program, but I think that was a little more hidden in secret than what the general public actually knows about.
Yeah, but even so, the Star Wars program, it's highly advanced technology
To
for us.
yeah.
Not
No, not for
them
those
up
guys
there.
out there.
No,
At the end of the day, there's no point even looking at it because we don't stand a chance either way.
exactly. And then you go back to the films, right? The 2 big films, one,
War of the Worlds.
even before, well, yeah, your War of the Worlds, but in recent times, I suppose there's the remake of War of the Worlds, but Independence Day, which is, I suppose, very similar to War of the Worlds.
Yeah.
Aliens come down, obliterate the world, Earth fights back, blah-de, 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 blah.
Oh, you mean the movie that fits the narrative of all wars, the Americans won?
Yeah, but if you look at what he was talking about with Avatar,
Yeah.
then the human race is taking our aggression to other planets,
To a peaceful race.
to a peaceful race. And I think that there will be a tipping point there somewhere which may force some kind of a disclosure event, because once we reach a certain point, those up there are going to turn around and say, we're not going to have that. Now's the time we need to come in and step them down a bit to make sure that they don't reach out and bring their aggressive ways into the universe.
Well, look at the old 80s TV show V.
Yeah,
You know, that was the same sort of thing.
they did do a remake of that as well.
But it was garbage.
I actually enjoyed it.
I see it as we're just a little ant farm in something big as hands.
Yeah, exactly.
That's all we are. You know, with the universe, it's supposedly ever expanding, and they're trying to tell you they haven't found anything yet.
Yeah, no, we're a speck.
We're nothing.
We're not. We're not. But again,
We're
like I
just
said,
puppets.
getting back to the disclosure event, what do you see it as? Do you think we've been given as much as what we've been given? Because I think it was only last year or the year before the US released an
2021.
unprecedented number of files on UFOs and things like that. But I can guarantee you they're all really, really, really redacted, and they're not going to tell you.
They're old
diddly squat.
tales that have been released since the 70s, since the 60s, 70s. They're old
Whatever
tales. They just
spot.
keep going over and over again. They're not giving us anything that's happened recent.
It's whatever's survived the fires of the areas.
No, it's
But
it's,
it's true. It's written fact that the documents went up in fire.
But you know, do you think the president, any president, is going to come out and say UFOs are real?
No.
Do you think any president of China would do that?
I think that if anyone's going to have a power move, it's going to be China for that sort of thing.
That's what I think.
They're
that's
the ones that have the most to lose.
And they're the greatest threat to the planet at the moment.
Being that it's the People's Republic of China, look, I've been there myself and seen firsthand of what some of these things can be like.
well, you look at it from you look at it from an alien's point of view, right? You're coming down to Earth, and you want to get your message across. Everybody thinks America is the biggest, the best, you know, the richest, this, that, and the other. But they're going to go to the most densely populated, and that would be China. You know,
It could be Sydney. It's fairly densely populated.
come on, Australia doesn't count
look,
anywhere in the world.
Have you ever been stuck in the road near Parramatta trying to go to Blacktown McDonald's? I think not.
Fair call, fair call. But in saying that, I think one government, if not ours, somebody's government needs to stand up with a testicular fortitude and say, right, it is real. You know, the people have the right to know. They're not stupid. It's not going to be chaos and pandemonium because we can't actually see them unless they want us to see them. So just let the people know that they're out there. Then maybe they'll watch to the skies more.
Have you ever seen that thing? What they call it? I think it's called the John Lear test.
No.
I think that's what it's called. It's an Art Bell thing. I think I've played it for Jeremy before, but
I've heard of it. Yes.
Yeah.
I think
I've got it on my phone, and I don't know how much truth there was to it, but it was along the lines of when a new president gets sworn in and they come in, you know, they get briefed on everything that's going on.
yes, you did play that. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, they get certain amount of knowledge of
And
what's
they
going
turn
on.
around and say, it's up to you if we're going to release the UFO files. Well, I'll say that in inverted commas. It's all up to you, but we're going to lay it out to you first. And then at the end of it, do you think we should? I'll say something that Lynn said to me, right? When Obama got sworn in, she reckoned he walked in young, bright-eyed, ready to rock and roll. You know, he's going to change the world. She reckons when he came out of that, he'd aged about 5 years, 10 years. You know, he had grayer hair. It makes you wonder what's actually getting said in those. And in all honesty, I think one of the things I've heard is this old plausible deniability. How much does the president actually know? Which is something that sort of Steve touched on in that thing about there are richer families,
Well,
you know,
it's the
New World
Rothschilds.
Order, the Rothschilds, the Illuminati, whatever they may be called now, because the Illuminati is supposed to be dead. But in all honesty, what good is a secret society if everybody knows about them?
Exactly
I
right.
know. I've always said that the presidents are puppets.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, for sure.
And that's half the reason Trump was booted out as quick as he was.
Because he had freedom of speech. And
To an
they shut
extent.
him up
Oh,
real quick.
Look where it got him.
Well, we can argue all day and night about Trump. I'm not exactly a Trump supporter, but
Nor am
I-
I at all.
I
But
mean-
But the new
He's-
guy that's
he's-
in certainly no better.
yeah, I wouldn't leave my children with the new one.
He's
I
not
told
a
you to
great
behave
person.
for your first one.
Look,
I
Trump,
said it in a nice way.
outside of being a businessman, he's a piece of work. But you need a business person to run a country as a business like the US is. And he was doing that.
Yeah. In all honesty, countries' sovereign borders now are not countries anymore. They're corporations.
Exactly.
You know. Shit! I've just pushed a button. I've turned us all wrong.
Woo!
Oh no! I cocked up.
That's going to get buzzed out.
I should have pressed me buzzy button. But I was too already pushing the wrong buttons. So
I think, yeah, China's definitely going to release something first as a power move. They've already got their citizens to believe that, you know, anything they say is what it is. They've blocked out the lights of Google and whatnot without having to use a VPN. They've built their own sun to trial to see how it goes.
Look, at the end of the day, if China wants to say anything, the whole world is going to stop and listen because they've got no idea what it's going to say.
100% they will.
And I think, like I said, you even look at a lot of the technology, it ties in with 1947, you know, the 40s, maybe not specifically the July 1947 event, but many others add to it. And that's when, you know, I think it wasn't long after that, the first circuits came out and, you know, and it just went from there. We've gone from basically pedal-powered planes to, you know, jets that can break the sound barrier several times over in a very short period of time.
Not being racist, but, you know, like the American government and like the Russian government and the Chinese government, they're all very greedy. They want to be the first for everything.
Well, every country wants to be the first for everything. The problem is there are only so many power players, and you just mentioned them, you know, and I suppose that's part of human nature is wanting to
I just want
outdo
the truth.
everybody, you know.
I just want the truth. I'm not after money.
Oh, well, you're not wrong. Like, let's be honest. How long have America and Russia been at digging the deepest hole? And I'm not even joking on that point. That's how petty it gets.
Well, I can take you to about 15 sites here in Australia that I know for fact, for personal fact, that harbour nuclear weapons for the US. Because I've been there as a military person. So,
Are you allowed to be disclosing?
Hang on. We'll stop that right.
I never disclosed where they are. So
Yeah, I know, but if you keep going like that, we're going to have a whole new show to talk about the men in black that are going to roll up on our bloody door.
bring them on. Bring them on.
The new show's going to be, we need money to bail him out.
No, I just think we as a human race have the right to know these things. I think it's wrong to hide things from people. The truth is everybody's privilege. You know, why hide it?
At least they didn't hide the fact that they've lost some nuclear stuff on the transit through Perth.
Oh, Lynn was telling me about that
Oh, the
today.
little radioactive bug from one of the mines.
What was it she said? It was like somewhere between here and 1,500 kilometres away, and it's that big.
It's smaller than a 10-cent piece.
Yeah. Well, the first question is, why were they not containing it properly, the fact that they lost it between here and there?
Did they lose it or did they want to lose it?
I don't know, but there'll be a certain part of WA that starts glowing tonight.
You've
All I'm
seen
saying is
your
I've
glowing
found it.
children around might not be aliens.
I found it. Do I get superpowers?
We'll stay and watch from a distance.
Shazam.
We're just about out of time. We've only got about 5 minutes left. So, any last thoughts on this whole thing?
I apologise to the general public if I'm too forward.
Oh. Sorry, you shouldn't put buttons in front of me. I generally tend to push them.
If you're going to take anyone first, take Jay.
Hey, I'm free to go, bro.
Just remember, they use probes. I'm not saying where they put them, but they use them.
Anyone want a bagel?
Oh. No. So, yeah. Will the world find out for sure?
Probably not in our lifetime.
So here's the question for you, though, Gary.
Yeah.
If by chance you were to meet an extraterrestrial, what would the first thing you do be?
Crack a beer with him.
What makes you think I haven't already?
I'm asking.
I know, but maybe I have to keep it secret because everybody has to keep it secret.
Well, it is 2023. Like, you can do whatever you want these days.
That's it.
As
Go-
long as the
you-
government says you can.
You go back like what 10, 20 years and they talk about the anal probe and it's in this day and age it'd be bring it on. All right, yeah, no. Anyway, that's going right off the bloody topic. We got 5 minutes to go. Let's keep it on topic for 5 more minutes.
A question. And then innuendos had happened. Not innuendos, but innuendos.
Look, there's been several times when I don't know if you guys have had it, where you wake up and like everything seems to be shaking or something's completely out of whack and you go, is this it? is there a flying saucer going over the top like Independence Day, you know, the big rumble as it went over and stuff, and you have a look and it's just a truck going past.
I've just always put it down as to my wife's not human.
Yeah, but oh no, that's a whole different show if I start talking
Well, they
about
do
that.
say women are from Venus.
Yeah. How did you just shut everybody up with one comment?
Oh, I thought that was the end.
No, you've got to do your little sign-off thing before you do that. Or do you want me to do it with a little voiceover thing?
Actually, that's yeah.
You can't do it. I can.
Well, I'll get one then.
Oh, shit, I pushed the wrong button again. I just swore. Hang on. Nah, I'm not going to do that. I'll leave it for you to do, mate. So I think that's it for tonight.
I reckon we get Jay to have a give it a crack.
You know how a little slow.
I don't even know what you're talking about.
Oh,
Make
God,
it up on the spot.
he's the
You're
new
right.
one on the team and he doesn't even bloody know how to call.
Hey, Jay, question for you.
Yes.
How many podcasts have you actually listened to the whole way?
Having time to do it, probably 4 or 5.
Oh, that's not too bad then.
Then you hear it. Then you hear it every one.
You heard it in every one.
I don't really recall what you're on about.
It's this one right here.
Keep it spooky, people. Catch you later.